All right. Good morning, everybody. This is George Exotic, and I'm here to talk to you this morning about Carol Baskin. No, I'm just kidding. Here to talk to you about math, specifically the math test. You guys did pretty well. Average was an 89. So I guess that's even better than pretty well. That's really good. So just a few things before we get, good. Nice to wake you guys up. A few things to sort of talk about in general before we get into the test itself. The first is with regards to scheduling. So I've had some people email me, what are we doing today? What are we doing this week? So our schedule is not going to change. If there is a change, I will post it on Canvas and let you know. But today we're just going to go through the exam. Because you guys did so well, I'll skip through or skip over a lot of the questions. Yeah, there you go. And the ones that you guys had trouble on, I'll work those on the board. Now, I did talk to, or I haven't talked yet. With the other classes, they've told me you guys can't see the quiz. You can't go back and view it. So I'm going to talk to OIT this morning or later today and see if there's a setting that I can change or if there's something they can do so you guys can go back and see it. I want you to be able to see that test. So obviously for the future, if you're studying, you're able to go back and check it out. And so I'll see if I can get that fixed for you guys. For Thursday, we will be doing 8-1 and 8-2 as if it was a regular class. I'll be, working on the whiteboard, kind of walking you guys through some problems. Now, certainly, one of the issues is that the problems that I see have different numbers than what you guys have. And so what I'm going to do to try to remedy that is on Canvas, I'll post a discussion thread. So for example, for Thursday, it'll be called Homework 8.1, 8.2. And in that discussion thread, if you have homework questions that you want to see worked, then just post a screenshot of that question. So let's say you want to see 8.1, number 1. You would just post a screenshot of that question. That way, good morning, everybody. That way, I know what numbers you guys have. So when I'm working it on Thursday, we're all on the same page. Since you guys can't tell me what the numbers are and so forth, I don't want to risk it on YouTube, the comment section here, trying to make sure I'm getting the right problems and numbers from you guys. So if you just post the question, then I can see it. Now, please look at the discussion thread. If you have a question on number 1, but somebody else has already posted question number 1, you don't need to repost the question again. I think there's like the option to like the discussion. You can just like it if you want. That way I know at least more than one person wants it or something. But like regular class, we'll try to get through all of them or get through as many of them as we can. So that's the plan for Thursday. Now, potential complication we have here is that when I came yesterday to work on the Math 126 videos, went into the classroom, no computer, no internet. Went to the other classroom, no computer, no internet. So I called the OIT and they're like, well, per the governor's orders, we're shutting down all the classrooms on campus. So they want us to teach remotely, yet they're shutting everything down on campus. I don't know how that makes sense, but it is what it is. Good morning, everybody. And so they do have 2 classrooms right now open in CBC. That's where I am here this morning. But their OIT guy stopped in and I talked to him and he said he doesn't know how long this will even be open. Obviously, day to day, things keep changing. So tomorrow morning, I'm going to try to set up a whiteboard at home and try to just run these videos from home instead. The issue is the internet service. So UNLV has really good internet service. I don't have as good of internet service. So I'm either going to have to upgrade my internet probably, or I'll be running some test videos between now and then. So if you get an email saying, George is now live, you don't have to check in. It's just, hello, everybody. It's just me like testing, does the video actually stay up the whole time, or is it going to be real choppy and things like that? So hopefully by tomorrow afternoon for the 126 class, I'll have that resolved. So for you guys, Thursday morning shouldn't be an issue, but just let you want to know. Yeah, actually, I'll have some cameos by Bambi, Ginger, and Cash probably. So you'll get to see all of them if they want to make an appearance. Probably Cash and Ginger will make an appearance. I'm not sure about Bambi. She's kind of camera shy and people shy, but we'll see. We'll get her on film at some point. All right. Also about the test then. So this is obviously a learning experience for you guys, learning experience for me. Your guys seem to go pretty smooth, a little smoother than 126. And I think it's because some of the questions I had, you just enter the answers as decimals and not try to format them. So I'll probably try to do more of that for exam 3. Now, one thing that will change for exam 3, and I got to talk to the course coordinator to see what his plan is for for the final exam, because I want you guys to be prepared for that as much as possible. But right now for exam 3, a couple differences will be taking place. First of all, you're only going to get one chance. You're not going to get 2 attempts at it. So it'll be very important for you guys to read how is the answer supposed to be formatted. If it says smallest to largest, you need to enter your answers in smallest to largest, or it will mark them wrong. And you guys should be used to that by now anyhow, because WebAssign has you do a lot of that anyways. They have you enter your answers smallest to largest. So why that caused a little bit of issue on the one problem, I don't know. The other thing though, because you only get one attempt, is there isn't going to be a time limit. So on this test, you guys had 2 hours. On exam 3, there won't be a time limit. So once you start it, until you click submit, there's not really a clock running against you. And so to that point, if you have a question about formatting, email me and I will get back to you as quickly as I can, assuming it's not like 2 in the morning or something, but I'll get back to you as quickly as I can and let you know that yes, this is formatted correctly, or no, you need to enter it smallest to largest, things like that. All right, so any questions in general about either the test you just took, the test you are going to take, or kind of class moving forward here before we get into the specific exam, exam 2. And just as a reminder, if you do have a question, just type a couple exclamation points, hit enter. That way I know that you're now typing out a question and then I'll stop. So don't type exclamation points and then your question, then hit enter, because that's not going to stop me until I see the exclamation points, then I'll stop. So if you have a question, just type the exclamation points and then I'll wait on you. So, all right, so let's get through these questions then. So let me ask this, the concept questions. I posted a discussion thread. I got a couple people had feedback. Oh, okay. Yep, go ahead. So as Eric's writing his question, maybe some of you want to comment here too. The concept questions, do you feel that they helped you, or was it just something else that, all right, I had to put time into learning this as well? Ideally, they hopefully helped you, but if they didn't, let me know that as well. I want to make this classes, especially now with this format, I want to make the class as productive as possible for you guys. So, okay, they help. Okay, good. Okay, yeah, so that's good. So I'll probably have some more of them. Obviously, not as many because that was playing catch up from earlier in the semester. Okay, good. A lot of positives, so that's good. And if they didn't, again, you can tell me that. It's not like I'm going to hold it against you. I want to make this help you. Okay, good. All right, so Eric. Okay. So just wait on Eric here for a second for his ticket out the door question. Yes, so there's still going to be the ticket out the door. Okay, so let me answer Eric's and then I'll answer yours, Lisa. So we'll still be doing ticket out the doors on Thursday. Once we're done with the questions you guys have over the homework, I'll give you some of those ticket out the doors. In addition, in order to make sure that there's still the attendance component of class here, during the lecture itself or while we're working out problems, I will identify one of the problems like, okay, this is the problem you guys need in your ticket out the door notebook. And so that will count as your attendance. So as I'm grading your ticket out the door notebooks at the end of the semester, I'll need to see those questions as well. Okay, this is my attendance question. Here it is. And so you'll have to put that in as well. But yeah, still doing the ticket out the doors because again, I want you guys to be able to use those for review for the test more than anything. So yeah, we will be doing those. It's just that you'll hand it in at the end of the semester at once rather than, obviously you didn't turn it in this time. And, you'll turn it in whatever probably after we're done with exam 3. All right, so for Lisa's question, if you exit the test, will it automatically be submitted? So I'm not sure. I assume by exit the test means you're like just closing your browser or something. I don't think it will be submitted because you're not clicking that submit button. But I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. When I talk to OIT today, I'll talk to them as well, saying if somebody closes their browser, even by accident or something, is it going to submit it? Or if you open the browser back up, log into Canvas, is it still going to say that you have this assignment pending? So I would assume that's what it would be. And then Brianna, I was a little confused, but I check all that apply questions for the graphs at first. Okay. So, all right. So no other questions. I'll get into the exam 2. So the first one had to do with your even values of pi. 97% of you got that right. That's the right side of the circle. Odd values of pi. 95% of you got that correct. That was the left side of the circle. Which functions are even functions? 95% of you got this correct. That's cosine and secant. And again, I will try to get OIT to give you guys access to this so you can see these, hopefully, for review later. Which half of the circle do we use for sine inverse? That's the right half. 97% got that right. Okay, I do have a question about time for DRC. And 2 hours for everyone. No, so the DRC, you should get double the time. You should have had 4 hours then, at least for this one. But for exam 3, there's no time limit at all. So you have the whole day essentially. So that shouldn't even be an issue on exam 3. All right, which half of the circle for cosine inverse? That's the top half. 97% of you got that correct. And then trig inverse, right half, 97% of you got that correct. So just looks like one student for each of those was missing that. So if you happen to be that student, just make sure you know sine and tangent, right half, cosine is top half. What do we know about the values of sine and tangent when they end up in the 4th quadrant? They're always going to be negative. Again, everybody but one person got that. If an inverse problem doesn't have a unit circle value, how can we solve it? So 95% got this correct, and that's our build the triangle method. Which trig graphs always have asymptotes? And it's all of them except for sine and cosine. So everything else, secant, cosecant, tangent, cotangent, all have asymptotes. Next one, how are the asymptotes for tangent and cotangent related? They are not related at all. They have nothing to do with each other. So one is not the inverse of the other. One doesn't have twice as many as the other. They're not related. So they have completely different asymptotes and you have to deal with them completely differently. Which method should be our first option for plane over the straight road problems? That's the tangent function. 95% of you got that right. If the planes are on the same, or the objects are on the same side, that's a subtraction problem. Again, 97% of you got that right. And if they're on opposite sides, that's an addition problem. 97% got that right. These concept questions, you guys did well on this. So I guess it probably helped your score as well, because when you're getting, what is that, 40 points, or hopefully knowing what you're supposed to be doing, that's a good thing. What method should we use for solving bearing and heading problems? That's our law of cosines. 95% of you got that correct. When given a navigation problem, the angle always touches what? Always touches the y-axis. So 3 of you did not get this correct. So for those 3, if you're watching right now, it's always the y-axis. If you're given something like north, 45 degrees east, that 45 is always going to touch the y-axis. Next one, if a problem says write as an expression, ... How do we solve that one? That's always our build the triangle problem. Our simplified problem. So if a simplified problem has one term, but it's not all sine and cosine, what do? First thing we do is change everything to sine and cosine. The next one, if we have one term and it's all sine and cosine, but in the denominator we have the sum or difference of sine and cosine, what do? That's multiplied by the conjugate. Again, 97%, got that right. Last simplified problem, if it has 2 terms, how do we simplify it? We combine it into 1. And so 89% got this correct. So 4 people did not. So let that be your go-to. If it has 2 terms, combine it into 1 term and then simplify from there. And then lastly, with regards to the trig equations, what are steps that we can use? Basically all of them that were listed. So convert them all to the same function. Factor and use zero property rule if possible. Use quadratic formula if possible, or convert any of the terms using our known formulas. Double angles, holy grail, things like that. All right, so any questions on the concept questions before we get into the calculation type of problems? All right, so first calculation problem. Needed you to figure out what sine of 60, cosine of 30 minus sine of 30, cosine of 60. So you had 2 ways you could have done this. You could have figured out what's sine of 60, what's cosine of 30, put those values in. What's sine of 30, what's cosine of 60, put those values in. Then simplify it from there. But a much easier way to approach this problem is what? Well, this is one of our sum and difference formulas. Sine cosine minus sine cosine. And this is just the formula for sine of s minus t, where in this case, s is 60 and t is 30. So this is saying what is sine of 60 minus sine of 30, which is sine of 30, which is just 1/2. And again, 97% got this right. I'll go through these calculation problems fairly quickly, except for the ones that gave people a lot of trouble, just because I want you to have the answers. So if you do use these as review later, at least you have it. All right, the next problem, next 2 problems actually are our inverse function. So 100% of you guys got this one. Actually, you got 100% of all of you got both of these correct. So the first one is tangent cosine inverse of 3/5. And again, this is why I gave you guys the concept questions. If I have an inverse problem, doesn't have a unit circle measure, what do? Build a triangle. That's what you would do for this one. And once you do this, your final answer should be 4/3. So if you want to write this problem down, write the answer down. If you need to use it for review for the final exam, I probably won't give you any more of these on exam 3. You guys have, I'm sure, are sick of these problems by now. But anyways, that's that one. The next one was sine inverse of cosine of 5 pi over 6. So this one does fall on the unit circle. This is negative square root of 3 over 2. So where on the right half is sine equal to this, it's negative pi over 3. And so again, remember from our unit circle, from our concept question, if it's in quadrant 4, it's always negative. So negative pi over 3. Can you explain the last one? This one or the one before? The tangent one? Okay. Yeah, so for the future, Jade, if you have a question, so before I move on, I don't want to lose you there. So just hit the exclamation points. I know that way to stop before I move on. Yeah, so we had tangent cosine inverse of 3/5. So this is not on the unit, well, I mean, it's on the unit circle, but it's not a value that we know. So if we call this theta, we have theta is equal to cosine inverse of 3/5. So therefore, cosine of theta is 3/5 if we build a triangle. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so this side is 4. Now rewrite this equation. Tangent of theta, what is tangent of theta? Opposite over adjacent, 4 over 3. That's how we would get 4/3 for that one. So is that good, or you need something else, more clarification? Okay, Jade? Anybody else? Okay, perfect. Okay. So then the next one is your law of cosine problem. So you're given side A is 4, B is 5, C was 8. And it said find cosine of B. So 95% got this right. 2 people missed it. Again, I won't spend a lot of time on it, but using our law of cosine formula, because we're trying to find B, the value, the side B has to go on the other side. So then when we set this up, so you have this equation, and once you move all the pieces around, use your algebra, you should end up with cosine of B is 55 over 64. So again, problem, an answer for you guys, so you can use this for review. If you were one of the, so on any of these, if you guys missed the question and I don't cover it, or I don't explain it well enough here today, then shoot me an email. I can definitely help you guys out on that. So, all right, next problem is our simplify and proof. 100% of you got this right, so that makes me very happy, no doubt about that. So we have 1 minus cosine of x over sine of x plus sine of x over 1 minus cosine of x. Again, you guys all got this right, so I won't waste your time here. But your answer, so if you try it again in the future, should be 2 cosecant of x. So again, if you're reviewing for the final or exam 3, if there's another simplified problem, I don't know if there will be or not, but that would be what you need. All right, now our trouble problem here. So the plane over the straight road, This one was exactly like one of the ticket out the doors, just the numbers were changed. But it said architect stands at a point where angle of elevation is 30 degrees, 150 feet closer. Angle of elevation is 45 degrees. How tall is the building? So if I draw a little sketch here, what does this look like? So we're trying to find the height of the building. There's a point here, angle of elevation is 30 degrees, walks 150 feet closer. Now angle of elevation is 45 degrees. How tall is the building? So this is our subtraction problem. It's on the same side. So we essentially have that x minus y is 150. So if I can figure out an equation for this problem. Yeah, so that did turn out to be an issue. If people weren't rationalizing it, it looked like the answer wasn't there. So I'll show you guys that as we go on here. So, all right. So we need two equations so we can get x and y and plug it into that guy. So for x, we're using the big triangle. So we have what? Tangent of 30 is opposite over adjacent, so h over x. So we get square root of 3 over 3, which is our tangent of 30 is equal to h over x. Cross multiply, x times square root of 3 is equal to 3h. Divide everything by square root of 3. So you get x is 3h over root 3. And again, we want our answers for these types of problems rationalized. So if I multiply everything by square root of 3, I get x is 3 times square root of 3 times h over square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3. So they cancel out. So it just becomes square root of 3h for x. And for y, using the small triangle, tangent of 45 is equal to h over y. Tangent of 45 is 1. So we get y is equal to h. Whatever our value for h is, that's the same for y. All right, so any questions on that? Otherwise, I'm going to erase this top part so I can continue on with the x minus y part. Okay. If you do, you can always go back in the video later. Whoops. So we have y is equal to h. So if I plug that in here, x is equal to square root of 3h minus y, which is h, gives me 150. So I don't have any fractions. I don't have to try to simplify that. All I have to do is factor out the h here. I get square root of 3 minus 1. Then divide everything by square root of 3 minus 1. So this is my answer for h. 150 over square root of 3 minus 1. So, any questions on that? Only 59% got that right. Maybe it was because of the rationalization. If you didn't do that, it would have caused you issues. But otherwise, any questions before I move on to the next question? All right. So, the next question is your Sohcahtoa problem. 95% of you guys got this one right. So again, I won't spend a lot of time on this. It gave you a right triangle with right angle at C. Told you B is equal to 5. Side C is equal to 13. and you had to find what's side A and what's all the trig functions of A. So if I have this triangle, right triangle, right angle is at C. So side B is 5, that's down here. Side C is 13. This is one of my Pythagorean triples, 5, 12, 13, meaning that side A is equal to 12. And then after this, all the trig functions. So sine of A, everything is A here, so we're using this. So sine is 12/13. Cosine, 5/13. Tangent, 12/5. So then obviously the other ones, by our reciprocal identities, we just flip them. So 13/12, 13/5, 5/12. And again, pretty much everybody got this problem right. So I won't spend a whole lot of time on that one. Try to make the best use of your guys' time here on these videos. All right, next problem. You guys did fairly well on this, at least for the first 4 parts. So this is the one where you had to find the exact value of the sort of find the exact value, and then it's like your sum and difference formula here. So sort of it is the build the triangle problem. It's just instead of x's and y's, it gave you actual numbers. So you have cosine of sine inverse of 3/5 plus tangent inverse of 12/5. So this one is our build the triangle. We have to do it twice. So if we call that theta, we call this phi. So we end up with sine of theta is 3/5. And again, I'm going to kind of jump ahead here because 95%, was that what it was? 95, I think. Yeah, 97, 95%. Final answer dropped down to 78. So when we get to that point, I'll slow down. But otherwise here, sine of theta is that. And over here, we're going to end up with tangent of phi is 12/5. So if we build our triangles, for theta, sine, so we have opposite over hypotenuse, it's a 3, 4, 5 triangle. For tangent, tangent is opposite over adjacent, so this is our 5, 12, 13 triangle. Then the problem had 4 blanks to fill in first. First thing it wanted to know, what is sine of theta? Well, sine of theta is 3/5. Then it said, what's cosine of theta? That's 4/5. Then it wanted what's sine of phi? That's 12/13. And then what's cosine of phi? That's 5/13. This was done for a couple reasons. One, so that I could kind of give you partial credit on this problem. The other is this should be leading you down the path of what is it you need to do for the final answer. So the final answer for this guy is what? This is really asking us what is cosine of theta plus phi. And that doesn't mean what's cosine of theta plus cosine of phi. That's not how this works. This is our sum and difference formula. So it's what? Cosine of theta, cosine of phi minus, because it's different, sine of theta, sine of phi. Does that show up? Yeah, I get out of the way. So now go ahead and plug these in. Cosine of theta is 4/5. Cosine of phi is 5/13 minus sine of theta, 3/5 times sine of phi, 12/13. So we get what? 20/65 minus 36/65 gives us -16/65. So that would be the final answer for this one. So the first four boxes, those values there, what's the exact value of what you started with? negative 16 over 65. Any questions with that before we move on? All right. The next one was our trig equation. And I think you guys did okay on this. I think it was more so the formatting of the answers is what generated the biggest issues here. So we have sine of 2x minus sine of x is equal to 0. Well, I can't factor anything out of this. I can't factor a sine here. This is not 2 sine of x. This is sine of 2x, which is my double angle formula. So this is 2 sine of x cosine of x minus sine of x is equal to 0. Now I can factor out a sine of x. When I do that, I'm left with 2 cosine of x minus 1. This whole thing is equal to 0. So now I have two values of product. I can use zero property rule. So that means sine of x is equal to 0. 2 cosine of x minus 1 is 0. So where on the unit circle is sine of x equal to 0? So one thing about this problem is it said solve this on the interval 0 to 2 pi. 0 has a bracket, meaning that's where we start our values. 2 pi has a parenthesis. So if you remember from Math 126, when you're writing things in interval notation, parenthesis means that value is not included. We go up to that value, but we don't include that value. So if you put as your answer here pi and 2 pi, that's wrong because 2 pi is not even part of our answers here. So it's actually 0 and pi. Now, it also is saying on that interval, it's not saying what's all the solutions. So we're not going to put plus 2 pi k, plus 2 pi k. That's not what this problem is asking. It's asking on that interval, these are the two values that are on that interval. So any questions on that before I move on? Because that might have been some of the confusion. Okay, so this one, move the 1 over. So divide everything by 2 says cosine of x is equal to 1/2. So where on the unit circle is x equal to a positive half? That's pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3. So you guys still on here? I haven't seen any comments. I want to make sure you guys didn't get kicked off or something. So, all right. So these are our 4 values. The problem stated, write your answer from smallest to, okay, perfect. All right. Thank you guys. Thought that's maybe just, okay. Sounds good. Thank you guys. So it said, write your answer from smallest to largest. So the smallest is what? The smallest is 0. The next smallest is pi over 3, so you had to write it as pi/3, and then pi, and then 5 pi divided by 3. So that's how the answers should have been entered in. Again, I know some of you guys had this, but didn't enter them in the correct order. So on the next exam, I'll try to make sure that that kind of stuff doesn't happen. Something else I'm thinking about maybe doing, I mean, I don't know how you guys like this format, this Canvas format, but the other option that I can do is create a test through WebAssign. So similar to the assessments that you guys do every weekend, every Sunday. So what I'll probably do is put a little poll up on Canvas. I'll see if there's like a poll option where you can click it. You don't have to like show your name or nothing. But see what you guys think. Do you want to do this Canvas method again, or would you rather do WebAssign? something you're more familiar with. So that might be another way to go here and still accomplish the same thing. All right, next problem, 84%. So that's good. Got it correct, and that's our bearing and heading problem. So we have two boats leave the port at the same time. The first boat is north 25 degrees west at 5 miles per hour. The second boat is south 35 degrees west at 10 miles per hour. And we want to know how far apart are they in 1 hour. So the first one is going this way. The angle has to touch the y-axis. So the 25 goes in there. That's 5 miles per hour. The second one is at 35 degrees, has to touch the y-axis. That one's at 10 miles an hour. And we want to know how far apart are they in 1 hour. So this is our law of cosines. So it's going to be x squared is 5 squared plus 10 squared minus 2 times 5 times 10 times cosine of the angle between them. So we need this angle inside the triangle. So there's two options you can do. You can either say, well, okay, this is 25 and 35. Add those together is 60. The entire vertical line is 180. So 180 minus 60 would be 120 degrees. So we know that 120 goes in here. The other option is to do each piece separate. So if this is 25, I know this quadrant is 90 degrees. So 90 minus 25 is 65. And down here, this is also 90 degrees. 90 minus 35 is 55 degrees. So if I add those two up, 65 plus 55 still gives me 120. Now I just need to solve this. 120 is one of our unit circle measurements. Cosine of 120 is -half. So therefore, if I simplify this, I get 25 plus 100, negative times negative, this becomes a positive. 2 cancels out with the half, so 5 times 10 is 50. Add those up is 175. So x is the square root of 175. I had you guys do this to 2 decimal places, so your answer should have been 13.23. So that is that question there again. 85%, 84% you guys got this right, so that's good. Is there any questions on that before I move on? Again, if there is, type the exclamation point. I know to hold on while you type out your question. All right, so then the last question was our alpha and beta question. You guys did okay on this. About 75 to 80% of you guys got this right. So let's go through this. So we have, let's see. All right, so cosine of alpha is equal to 3/5. And cosine of beta is 4/5. And so we want to know what is cosine of alpha plus beta. What is beta? What is cosine of 2 alpha? And what is cosine of alpha over 2? So, one thing about this problem, cosine of alpha plus beta does not mean cosine of alpha plus cosine of beta. It's not how you work this problem. This is what? This is our sum and difference formulas. And so I'm going to also need my values for sine. So if I build the triangle for these two, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So this is my 3, 4, 5 triangle. Same with this one for beta. Cosine adjacent over hypotenuse, also a 3, 4, 5 triangle. The sides are just reversed. So this one, by my sum and difference formula, is cosine alpha, cosine beta, minus sine of alpha, sine of beta. So cosine of alpha is 3/5. Cosine of beta, 4/5. Minus sine of alpha, 4/5. Sine of beta, 3/5. So this becomes what? 12 over 25 minus 12 over 25. So the answer for that one should be 0. Any questions on that? All right, cosine alpha minus beta. It's the same thing, same formula. The only difference is this is a plus sign in between. So instead of this minus that, it's this plus that. So it's 12 over 25 plus 12 over 25, which is 24 over 25. Questions on that? Cosine of 2 alpha. So you have a few different formulas, but only one has alpha in it, and that's what we were given. So I'm going to use that instead. So that's what? 2 cosine squared alpha minus 1. Now, no matter what formula you use, as long as you use sine and cosine in the formula correctly, that's fine. But this one I can be a little bit more sure because I already know what cosine of alpha is. It was given to me. So this is 2 times 3/5 squared minus 1. So 2 times 9 over 25 minus 1. That's 18 over 25 minus 1. So 18 over 25 minus 1 is 18 over 25 minus 25 over 25 is negative 7 over 25. So that should be your answer for part C. And last one, our half angle. It tells us these are acute angles, which is quadrant 1. So it's going to be positive 1 plus cosine of alpha over 2. Cosine alpha is given to me 3/5. So 1 plus 3/5 over 2. Combine the numerator, 5/5 plus 3/5 is 8/5. All over 2, the whole thing square rooted. And simplify, you get square root of 8 over 10. And depending how far you simplify it, you can get square root of 4 over 5. You can get some radicals like 2 root 5 over 5 or something. They were all acceptable answers. And so that's what you would have had for that. So you had 2 over square root of 5, 2 square root of 5 over 5, square root of 4/5, square root of 8/10. Any of those answers are fine depending how far you took it. Okay, oops. This problem. Okay. Okay, Dominique, does it make sense now, or is there still something you need some clarification on? So you're not really substituting cosine of beta for sine. You're using cosine of beta to build another triangle, our beta triangle. Okay, you get it? Okay, good. Anybody else? That was the last of the questions on the test. Any other questions that anybody has before we wrap it up here? So again, for Thursday, you guys will do 8.1 and 8.2. Any questions you have on it that you want to see work during the class period, post those to Canvas. I'll put a discussion thread up there. Otherwise, if you guys don't have any questions, I will let you go. Be safe. Hopefully this is over. They got a cure now, so I don't know why we're still stuck on lockdown, but got to do what they tell us for now, and just try to be safe out there. And otherwise, you guys have a good day, good night, and we will see you guys on Thursday.